build a back with just 2 bodyweight exercises. So the first exercise, surprise, surprise, is pull-ups, and I'm not just talking about one specific kind. I mean all the weird and wonderful grips and variations. As long as you are practicing the movement and not just banging out reps for the sake of a made-up number, then you will build a strong, solid and functional back too. There's a difference between looking strong and being strong. You can crack exercises in the gym that make you look nice and pumped, but if you are unable to handle that weight when it comes to getting yourself above the bar, then I believe you've took a wrong turn at some point. Every man should be able to lift his own weight above the bar at least once. That's why military and MMA fighters primarily condition themselves with body weight, because you will acquire strength and with that a little bit of size, but it's lean. You're not cumbersome or top heavy. You're able to manage that weight and maneuver and operate. Of course, there are several ways to progress. If you want to grease the groove and keep it nice and light, that works. Or if you want to kick the hell out of yourself once a week, that also works. You just have to be consistent. You can't go, all right, I did my pull-ups, now what? Why aren't I massive? And on that note, you won't get massive. You're not going to win Mr. Olympia or anything like that, but the gains that you do get are sort of set in stone, ingrained. Like, you know, when those old blacksmiths would forge a sword with layer after layer and just compact it. That's kind of like body weight. It does take longer to get, but it also takes longer to lose. You won't start melting if you take a few sessions off. There's a reason the basics have stuck around for this long, because they work, but only if you do them correctly. Practice the basics as if they were advanced. I heard that somewhere and I'm stealing it. Work on your full range of motion, time under tension, and really zone into that mind-muscle connection. The last thing I'll say is reference the bodyweight row. It's not just a progression used to get to the pull-up and then you never use it again. You can include them in warm-ups and especially drop sets. Not only does it work the mid-back a little better, it acts as a reminder for how a proper pull-up should feel. So with shoulders depressed, full retraction of the scaps, chest to the bar, that's what you should be trying to emulate when you're doing pull-ups, that row movement. When your pull-ups start feeling like rows, you're doing all right. So the second exercise is somewhat of a controversial exercise choice, but I believe it's the best thing you can do to counter all the leaning and slumping and slouching that we do day to day. Sometimes known as back bending, back bridging, or just the bridge. Yogis typically refer to it as the wheel pose. However, I'm not too keen on that term, just because I see it as much more than a pose. I like to train it dynamically as well as just a static element. Although you do well to include the pose, that's a great start, but you want to move on to bridge push-ups as soon as you're able. Treating this movement like a strength exercise is what's really going to give you that lower back definition. As with all calisthenics exercises, there's always a suitable progression for you to start with. So kicking up against the wall with legs elevated should be a little bit easier. Working closer and closer to the floor until eventually you're doing full bridge push-ups, starting off your back and resetting each rep. So we're not just looking to lengthen the spine, we're looking to strengthen it simultaneously. If you're not quite ready yet, you can work on dorsal raises or hyperextensions, the crab, but also in bodyweight it's a little bit easier to set up the reverse hyperextension, and it has good carryover towards planche progressions, whichever one you're working on at the time. I'm going to go as far as to say the bridge trumps the deadlift for building that posterior chain. It's just a little bit more difficult to progress. You can't just keep piling on weight, you have to get a little bit more creative with it. Once you're fairly comfortable with bridge push-ups, you want to be working towards wall walking bridges. There's a bunch of regressions you can try out, and you should try out. loads of people I know have the tenacity to just try and walk backwards down the wall straight away, but it's with bad form. It shows that you've just skipped a bunch of progressions. Top effort for having the minerals to just go for it, but this is a lifetime thing. It's a lifelong mission, and I've got a hell of a long way to go myself. It's not a race, and you don't need to rush it. You also should include the boring mobility drills that enable you to do the cool stuff weekly. For me, it's loosening up my shoulders and my thorax in general. At the end of the day, the central nervous system is protected by the spine, isn't it? It runs down from the brain in your skull through your neck and down the spine. That's your vulnerable point. If that gets damaged, you can be a vegetable real quick. If you were an alien sent down to this planet and you realized that you could protect your body, upgrade your vessel, what would you choose to strengthen first? Would it be your chest and buys, or would you consider fortifying your HQ with a force field of muscle? If I haven't talked you into bending over backwards for your mobility and longevity, at least do it for the shallow reason that it'll give you that Christmas tree or those back abs people tell me about. Cheers.